At long last, it looks like the anti crypto army and even the dragon leading it have been mortally wounded by the will of the American people as exercised through their elected representatives. And this might signal a huge shift in US crypto policy. If you think the only good anti crypto army is a retreating one, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Feast your eyes on this, the fall of the dragon and the anti crypto army. This is truly a mortal wound to the anti crypto agenda. And you notice this is not a razor thin margin. This is a vote of 60 to repeal SAB 121 and 38 voting against the repeal. So we had some Democrats voting along with Republicans, and they were these Democrats. This post says SAB 121, first standalone crypto bill ever to pass both chambers of Congress, sails through the Senate 60 to 38. And look at who among the White House's party voted with the Republicans. Senator Schumer, the highest ranking Democrat in the Senate, the leader of the Senate currently. And then, no surprise, Gillibrand. Why is Gillibrand not a surprise? As we've covered many, many times on this channel, she always goes in with Senator Lummis of Wyoming. Gillibrand's from New York. They always go in together on all of the crypto legislation. There are basically our two biggest allies in the Senate. And then we have other parties down here, Booker, Wyden, Cinema. So a bunch of, some of these are not a big surprise. But what is a surprise is that Biden threatened the veto and it still passed by a vote of 60 to 38. This is a really big deal. So why is the repeal of SAB 121 a big deal? Let's go back and cover this from the beginning. So first of all, what did Staff Accounting Bulletin 121 actually do? Well, according to KPMG here, SAB 121 required entities undertaking certain digital asset custodial activities to record a safeguarding liability and asset. So, more specifically, we can say that the key impacts were these: an issuer that holds digital assets for others recognizes the custody of digital assets and a liability to return those assets if it controls them. An issuer that holds the assets but doesn't control them recognizes a liability for its obligation to safeguard the digital assets and a corresponding asset. So, this is a huge problem for any kind of financial institution that wanted to hold crypto, because whether they held it and they controlled it, or they held it and they didn't control it, they still had to record those assets as a liability. So nobody wants to take in assets and have to record a liability on their balance sheet. This is not a cool situation, and basically would have made it a practical impossibility for a large number of institutions to actually be willing to hold crypto assets, which of course was the intention. The whole intention was to make it extremely difficult for institutions to hold crypto assets. That was the whole reason for Staff Accounting Bulletin 121. You'll remember last time we talked about how, through the efforts of people like young and powerful Colonel Redenbacher, Representative Patrick McHenry, the repeal of Staff Accounting Bulletin 121 was passed through the House of Representatives. But then that meant it had to go to the Senate. You'll remember there were a couple of big problems with the repeal of SAB 121 in the Senate. Number one, that's where the dragon lives and has a lot of influence. Number two, the dragon's party controls the Senate. Number three was this: the White House decided to issue this statement of administrative policy that basically says if the president were presented with this repeal of SAB 121, the president would veto it. This is problematic because who in the president's party, who controls the Senate, is willing to go against what the White House is saying in this case? Many different posters pointed out on X that this was a crazy move. This veto threat was a crazy move by a White House. And in an election year, when this election is certainly not already cinched up for them, this could be a very, very difficult election for this White House administration. It's not a good idea to be alienating young voters like this. Here, Jake Chervinsky says, Staff Accounting Bulletin 121 is illogical and illegal. The SEC adopted it in violation of the CRA and the APA for no reason other than to harm the crypto industry. The White House should have walked away from this mess instead of doubling down on attacking U.S. companies. Not smart in an election year. So you have to ask yourself, why would Biden allow this to go on if it endangers his reelection this year in this way? The answer is because, as a lot of people have been suspecting, he may not be calling the shots on certain policy matters. Okay, a lot of people would argue any policy matters, but probably not specifically this type of policy. Here's a post that says, thoughts about Biden veto threat. Before Congress votes to repeal SAB 121, big banks lobbied hard and lost. The dragon still controls White House financial services policy. The dragon's real goal isn't helping big banks, it's a CBDC. I think this is very, very likely. What we've seen all along, this whole administration has been very consistent with this idea that the dragon was actually controlling all of this policy on everything having to do with crypto and probably everything having to do with financial services, with a very specific agenda against crypto. In fact, it was a stated agenda. We've all seen the anti-crypto army. At least we all saw this announcement of the idea that the dragon was building an anti-crypto army. What was amazing was that Politico, apparently, according to this image, was also able to predict that also crypto would be drinking the tears of the anti-crypto army on the 16th of May, 2024. I'm pretty sure that is exactly what Politico wrote. Kind of disrespectful to the dragon, if you ask me, right next to this picture of her looking very solemn, very determined. And they had the gall to write that crypto would be drinking the tears of her anti-crypto army. How did they know? How did Politico know? But in fact, that's exactly what happened. And that was the date of the vote. While all that was going on in the background to repeal SAB 121, the pro crypto caucus in Congress also knew they had to create some regulatory clarity for crypto. And so on May 10th, they introduced the Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act, the FIT 21 Act. Patrick McHenry again here says, for too long, the U.S. digital asset ecosystem has been plagued by regulatory uncertainty that stifled innovation and left consumers unprotected. We've talked about Fit 21 on this channel in the past. It's not perfect. It is not perfect, but it's better than what we got now, which is pretty much just Gensler and the Dragon and the White House hating on crypto as hard as they possibly can. Because Fit 21 would help to curtail some of that regulatory haterism, it was no surprise today when we started seeing posts like this. SEC officials will direct the Dem whips to vote against the Fit Act, or at least direct the Dem whips would direct the Dems to vote against the Fit Act. This post says, I'm not a huge fan of the bill, but this is wild. And the sort of screenshotted article says, House Democratic leaders rally opposition to GOP crypto bill. Then a ray of hope. Posts like this started coming out. New House Democratic leaders said today they will not whip against House Republicans' crypto bill. The whip question sent to members this AM says that Walters and Scott strongly oppose the legislation, but it does not urge them to vote no. So basically saying, hey, that last line, ranking members Waters and David Scott strongly oppose this bill as written. So they're sort of like providing themselves this Weasley way out of this. Sort of like, hey, we didn't tell our members to vote no. We wanted them to vote their conscience. And if they did vote no, it's sort of like, oh, they just happened to vote their conscience exactly how we wanted them to. But at the same time, who knows? I mean, the way the vote went in the Senate, they could also vote in a way that's contrary to what certain portions of the party seems to want right now. So this, though, seemed to be an indicator that maybe this party, the party of Gensler and the Dragon and the White House, maybe they were starting to be a little concerned that they really might be hurting their reelection chances this year. That theme that maybe the White House was getting concerned that they were really hurting their chances in the elections later this year got exponentially amplified when posts like this started coming out. First of all, CoinDesk reported this: exchanges are being asked to update 19B4 filings on an accelerated basis by the US SEC. Three people familiar with the situation told CoinDesk, suggesting they may be moving to approve these applications ahead of the key deadline this Thursday. What are they talking about? They're talking about the Ethereum ETF. This poster says, we are increasing our odds of spot Ether ETF approval to 75%, up from 25%. Hearing chatter this afternoon that SEC could be doing a 180 on this increasingly political issue. So now everyone scrambling, like us, everyone else assumed they'd be denied. This is really interesting. We saw this last time with the approval of the Bitcoin ETFs. All of a sudden, we saw the US SEC asking all the applicants to update their filings. Here we see all the applicants on the Ether ETF being asked to update their filings on an accelerated basis. No one seemed to think this was possible. I think this post has it correct. If the spot ETF is approved, it will be a true shock to everyone I know in DC who's close to this process. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It means approval could signal a major shift in US crypto policy after the SAB 121 vote, perhaps more important than the ETF itself. So, why would this be happening? Probably because all the people working for the current White House administration want to keep their jobs. And it seems apparent that those are the people calling the shots. Normally, you'd have an executive in the White House who is concerned about their legacy and doesn't want to tarnish their legacy, wants to be known as a good president, wants to go out on a good note, not just do whatever to push whatever agenda that might engender opposition from the American people. And that's exactly what we saw as expressed through the House and the Senate in the SAB 121 vote. It was apparent the delegates of the people spoke and said, hey, we as representatives of the American people don't want this anti-crypto agenda. That was very apparent when even 21 members of the opposing party joined with the Republicans to pass that repeal. So the White House has to be the people actually making these decisions in the White House, who are apparently not the chief executive, but people who are appointed to run these little bits of policy. Those people want to keep their jobs, and I think it's finally dawning on them they might actually lose their jobs. What could have caused them to finally acknowledge this possibility? Who knows? Maybe it's the polls. Maybe it's the criminal proceedings against their opposition not going like they would have hoped. Especially today. Today was an especially bad day for those proceedings for the team currently in the White House. Maybe it's all of these things together, but it seems like they're getting scared and they realize they need the youth vote. And more important than that, they don't just need the youth vote. We often talk about crypto as if it's just the youth vote, but actually, like I said earlier, I think crypto proponents are intergenerational. It's we have crypto advocates among every single extant generation. And none of those people are going to want to vote for an administration that is so obviously hyper anti crypto. And a lot of people hold crypto now. And I think they're realizing, like, hey, the dragon's been calling the shots all along, and the dragon is going to lead us right into a one-term presidency. We're going to turn around and lose this election. We can't give up these big chunks of voters like everybody who holds crypto. We can't make everybody who holds crypto hate us even on one issue. Let's say even a lot of them may like our other domestic policy. They may like our other geopolitical external policies. But if they hate us on this one policy area, especially one that digs in their pocketbooks like this, they may not vote for us. And I think they're getting afraid they might actually have to worry about big groups of voters like crypto. I mean, we say it's a big group. It's a lot of people, a lot more people than it was 10 years ago when I first started getting into crypto. It's still not that big in the grand scheme of things, but it's growing. And in this election, they need every single vote they can possibly get. So everything we just covered kind of goes toward the fundamental threshold question: will crypto survive or will it be stamped out by bad regulation? Currently, as of today, things are looking pretty sunny in that regard. Things are looking good. It's looking like we're going to survive. And this is nothing new, this existential threat to crypto. It's sort of been in our throats since Satoshi dropped the white paper. It's always been in the background, lurking, this monster waiting to devour crypto. Yet we've survived all this time. And it looks like today, once again, we are surviving. Then there's the next question. If you watch or listen to this channel, you are probably involved in some way in Cardano. So the next question is, if crypto is going to survive, why then Cardano? And it looks like the rest of crypto might be finally coming to the same answer to that question that all of us in Cardano have come to a long time ago. And that is embodied in this post right here. So first of all, know that this poster is the former CTO of SushiSwap and also a former Ethereum core dev at Consensus. So very much a person not in the Cardano world. But even this poster has come to the conclusion that decentralization is the product. And that has pretty much been the guiding light in the Cardano ecosystem since its foundation. That decentralization was the fundamental, most important thing. That we're trying to solve the trilemma. And one of the legs of the trilemma is decentralization. It's not a leg of the trilemma you can just amputate in the name of scaling. You need to have the decentralization part. If you don't have the decentralization part, you might as well just be running this thing in an Excel spreadsheet, some kind of very fancy version of it, living on a server somewhere. Decentralization is the product. You've also got to have the security. You can't be doing the robbery force thing. You got to do the security thing. You got to do the decentralization thing. It's not just it's not just the scaling part that matters. You've got to do these other parts as well. So rest assured, everything in crypto, just like everything in life, is cyclical and everything seems to come back around. It looks like the rest of crypto is finally coming back around to where Cardano has stayed the whole time. That's grounding the ecosystem first in decentralization. And while a lot of these other large cap crypto ecosystems are suddenly going to see the need to build back in the decentralization they've lost in the name of scaling, Cardano has been building from that fundamental basis of decentralization the whole time. And we're going to have an ecosystem that's built out on true decentralization, while the rest of these projects are going to have to figure out how to build it back in. And the question is not going to be how long it'll take them, it'll take a long time, but whether they can actually build it back in. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.